is you say, all right, well, you put the bank in the receivership and we deal with it. Now, there were several arguments about trust when it came to this. I submit to you the banks have already substantially endangered their trust, our trust with them, in the last few years. And the fact that this is the very motion that's in front of this House is itself already the question of whether or not we should trust these folks. Now let me walk through, well, let me first do the third, which is the question of how do you invest in the future? Because part of the thing that I thought was particularly erroneous, and I'm more familiar with the US bailout than I am the UK, but I have some knowledge of it, is that supporting in old institutions and the way they've been doing things, I generally like to support new institutions. And so if there's ways of building new things that are adaptive, it's a much better way. And I think that's part of where the dollars and stimulus go. So let me review, I think, a few of the arguments that have been made by the opposition. So in the case of Iceland, which yes, I do actually know where it is, the question of the fact that Iceland had a collapse of its financial system and there was no support of it, and the government could not put stimulus into the economy in order to do that, is of course a terrible fact. And the question, you know, I mean, for example, I mean, the banks did go into receivership, but as for the receivership, there was nothing that they could be done with them. I don't think that the Iceland case is particularly informative. Let's go through the three arguments. The first one is, well, you know, yes, the bankers didn't get bonuses there, right? But of course, there wasn't any money to do it. The second, right, is that in terms of the efficiency of how you put the money into it, again, well, there wasn't money there. And the third is, what do you do in terms of investing in the future? And I hope that someone will focus on the future. The second is, I was actually struck by the joke that was told, which was, don't tell my mother I'm a banker, because she believes I'm playing the piano in the brothel. Well, I think there were certain bankers in the last few years that, you know, the person playing the piano in the brothel is doing a substantially more honest job. And that may actually, in fact, be a good thing. But the question I think comes down to is, again, it's not that the financial system isn't important. It's a question of how do you apply the dollars in an effective manner. And I don't think that the question, like, for example, the aesthetics of part of the first thing was, the first argument is that when we put in money in a way that says, look, we understand, you're going to gamble, you're going to take a lot of risk, you're going to, I mean, we try to put regulatory systems in place, but you're going to run around them. And when it happens, we're not going to penalize the people who did it as thoroughly as we should. That's a serious problem. Now, that being said, I do believe, you know, I like having a bank account. I think it's a good thing. But that, I don't think, is the only way to possibly save it. Now, and Dr. Cheever's point, who was saying, well, you know, okay, the bankers are bad, but so are the technologists. The $300 billion that he was referring to, I think, was primarily run up by bankers again. Right, the investment bankers who are doing all the parts of the public process and so forth. And I don't think it's the aspersions to the technologists, which are particularly... Oh.
Question, were the guys receiving this money not aware of what was happening?
Well, the question is, were they, I don't think that they were the people who were, they were floating their offerings, but they weren't the person selling the stock on the street. I believe that's the role of the investment bank.
Never on a roadshow. No entrepreneur, no high-tech entrepreneur in 1999 ever went on a roadshow and said, give me your money. Ever. Is that correct, Reid?
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what you were saying.
No.
My mistake.
Now, in anticipation of Professor Janeway's comments, since we happen to be there, one could suggest that he has a personal reason for, of course, being on the side. Himself being, having long affiliated with one of the banks that may be referred to as a casino bank in this country. But actually, I think...
What bank was that?
Warburg.
Warburg's not a bank.
Nope.
SG Warburg, the former SG Warburg, is a bank. Repentance is exclusively a venture capital investment company.
Ah,
Thank you, Reid. Appreciate it. Point of information. By the way, Sigmund Warburg hated the idea that he had no control over the American world of banks.
got it. Wrong institution, my apologies. So,
Point of information or
however, one of the things that I think he will argue, because I think he'd seen that, is that preserving the trust in the banking system is critical. And I do believe that preserving the trust in the financial system is important. And I do believe that preserving the trust in the fact that the country will keep things running is important. However, I think propping up the very institutions and people who have brought us to this point is not the right way to do that. So the question is, when you look at this, is why is it that we are arguing this in terms of the House proposition? Well, one is that we believe that the way the money has been spent has been wasteful. It's preserved shareholder value. It's preserved bonuses. I believe that Goldman just did $16 billion in bonuses. And the second is that I think that there are other ways to potentially invest in the future. So I think the term of socialism and capitalism has been bandied around. But I think that one of the things is, the question is, if you are actually allowing a capitalist system to flourish, you need to allow people to have accountability. And that accountability is part of the reason that we look at this as a waste. So in summation, for the House, I think the question is, do you think that the money that went out of your pockets was well spent? Do you think that it was right economically? And do you think it was right morally? And with that, I cede the floor.